Today we're going to be looking at renting versus owning a property. So here, in two different categories, I have all the project assumptions given to us. So it's broken down into property information and loan information. So this is going to be very important values for analyzing the rest of this. So let's go ahead and get started. Here we have our loan and equity calculations. And we have three different things here: annual debt service payment, annual loan constant, and equity investment. So for the annual debt service payment, an important thing to remember is that they're asking for the annual, not monthly. But here we have it in months. So it's just important, whatever we do at the end, we need to multiply it by 12 to make sure that we get the annual debt service. And that's really important for the rest of this. So this formula here, first we need the rate. And that's going to be the interest rate divided by payments per year. 12, it makes sense, 12 months in a year. The next aspect is going to be our 30 years times the 12. And then the last aspect, the PV here is $200,000. That was the original loan amount. And then, like I said, make sure to multiply it by 12. I put in a negative because since this is a payment function here, it's going to produce a negative cash outflow. So we just want a positive. It just makes everything look nicer. All right here, the annual loan constant. It's just going to be our annual debt service divided by our loan amount. That's 6.44%. So that's how much we're trying to pay off annually. The equity investment is just going to be the difference between these two prices here, $250,000 and $200,000 for the loan amount. All right, so let's get down to the summary loan schedule. This is important because these are going to be the big numbers that a company would want to look at, or even an individual would want to look at when deciding, do I want to rent this property or do I want to own this property? These are probably the biggest four. So here we have the original payment, like we already calculated that here. So we can just go ahead and drag that across. But for the balance, we're going to have to put in, we want to start with the interest. We're going to put in a equation here. This is the cumulative interest payment equation, and here's all the different aspects. I locked all these down because it makes it easier to drag everything across instead of having to put the equation in every single time. But basically what we did here is G6. We're using all the different loan information here. So we had interest rate divided by the payment years again, loan term divided by the payments per year again, and then we had the loan amount, and then this one we had to put in start and end periods, but we wanted to make sure to put it in by months because that's what our loan information is in. So for this first year, the period dates would be 1 to 12, but for the second year, you can see that they will be 13 to 24, and these will be 25 to 36, and so on and so on. So that'll give us all of our interest. And then once we have that, we can come in here and we can come in and calculate the principal. The principal is just going to be the difference between these numbers all the way across. And then we can calculate the balance, which is the difference between the loan amount and the principal that we have here. All right. So here's the next aspect, property data. So the property value is going to begin at $250,000. That was given. And then the first year, this is going to go up because, this is going to go up because of the property growth rate of 3% right here. So that's important to remember because that's going to go up every year. But we want to lock that 3% down, and then we are able to drag this equation all the way across. Just multiplying this original property value times 1 plus the growth rate of 3%. And then we're going to do the same thing for rents, except we want to use the rental growth rate, which is also 3%, but important to note that those are two different values there, or they could be. All right, so here's the next section, BTCF of the owner, before tax cash flows. So we got it broken down again, years 1 through 5. So the property taxes, I think that was already given to us. No, excuse me. That is the property value times the property tax of 2% given up here. Alright, and then we're going to do the same thing, lock down that original percentage, and then we can just drag the equation all the way across. Same for this, except we want to use the insurance of $1,000 and multiply that by expenses growth rate, which is 3% in this scenario. So pretty much the exact same thing for maintenance, except we want to use the original value of $2,500 given to us, and then each year following the original, then we want to add that 3% expense growth rate. Alright, so that'll give us all of these numbers. Okay, and then the principal and interest is just going to be these two numbers that we already calculated, added up, just to make it all look nice. So we have all those down here again, and then the cash outflow before taxes is just going to be the sum of all four of these. Alright, so the cash outflows before taxes. Now we're going to go down to the next section, tax deductions from owning. So here, this is going to be all the taxes that come with the property. So property tax, $5,000, that was already given to us. Interest, we've already calculated. So we're just bringing all those down. But then here, the total tax deductions, we are going to want to add these two together. So same for every successive year. And then the tax savings is going to be this total tax deductions, tax savings is this total tax deductions times the marginal tax rate of 28%. Alright, so that will get us all of our final numbers here, years 1 through 5. Alright, net cost of owning and net cost of renting. This will go into this final section right here, but we're just going to break it down further. So cash outflows before taxes, this was already calculated here, cash outflows before taxes, so we're just going to bring all those down. Here's 1 through 5. Tax savings was also already calculated. It's right here in the last section. So basically we're just going to do a subtraction equation here, get our after-tax cost. And then rentals is pretty straight up, except we just have to remember that, or we've already calculated that, but we just have to remember the annual rent growth rate. So we're just going to pull those numbers down from earlier as well. This next section here, we're pulling those same numbers down again, but here we're taking the difference between the two. And this is going to be a really important section because this is how we begin to analyze, is it worth it to, or are we even making money off of owning it versus renting it? So important to keep those in mind. This next section here is the before taxes cash flow sale. Excuse me. Alright, so here we have the sales price. That was already given to us right here. We've calculated that based off the original project assumption of $250,000 property value. So we have all of those numbers down here. Selling costs. So we're going to take this number and multiply that by the selling expenses of 7%. And again, we're going to drag that out across all 5 years here. The mortgage balance, this is a number we already have earlier as well. This is the balance that we have in the summary loan schedule. So we're going to bring those down. And then the benefit from sale, owning or renting. Basically, here, I meant to put this in here. It just makes it easier on the eyes. So this is just going to be taking our sales price, less our selling cost, less our mortgage balance. And as you can see, those are all positive numbers, benefits from the sale. But then we get into the after-tax cash flow. So here we have the sales price pulled down again, less selling cost from right here, less purchase price. This is going to be right here, $250,000 again. So then here we have the gain on sale, and this equation is basically just going to be the sales price less selling cost less the purchase price. And as you can see, in these first 2 years, we are not making any money off that. We only begin to profit after year 2, so 3, 4, and 5, and however farther past that you continue this. So here, the exclusion, this is important to note because obviously if we're not making any money, no taxes can be excluded. So the first 2 years it's going to be 0, but for the other 2 years it's going to be just whatever we were able to make on the gain of sale. And then taxable gain, because we're not in that bracket of $250,000, we are not going to be taxed on any of this. So for both of these, taxable gain and taxes, obviously if there's no tax, there's no taxable gain, and vice versa, they're all going to be 0. So then this after cash flow is just going to be this benefit from sale minus our taxes, but they're all 0, so it's pretty much just the benefit from sale in this specific scenario. So then we're going to look down here, and this is the actual chart that allows us to make our final decision on is it worth it to rent or own the property. Basically, we've broken out this chart, all 5 years, and then this right here is the after taxes internal rate of return. So obviously pretty important. This one we're not making any money, this one we're making a little bit, and then here in the 3rd year we begin to get into the double digits, and I think most people would agree that that's probably when you would decide it's more beneficial for you to own it instead of renting it. But here we can look at, this is the after-tax cash flow and the after-tax cash flow of owning and renting added together. All right. And then we're going to do the same thing for the 2nd year, same thing for the 3rd year, same thing for the 4th year and 5th year, and so on and so on. So basically, we did all that work for this column right here. This is what you want to look at. Basically, after 3 years, you're going to be making 12% return, and I think that's when it would be profitable for somebody to own a property instead of renting it. So there's my project, and thank you for listening.